Hi, everybody. So today is July 17th. I said that I would give an update of my past history, a little rundown. Okay, and the reason I find this important is I want to address with people out there that are trying to get other people into rehab. First question. Here's the deal. Most of the time, if I'm talking about my subconscious, I did not want to go at first. And it's not that I didn't want to go. And it's not that I didn't think that the alcohol was playing too big of a part in my life. I did not think that I needed to change for anybody or for any reason. I thought that I could handle it on my own and I would do it on my own terms, and I was being very selfish, which is what an addiction will do to you. And then number two is fear. Fear of what other people are going to say, that you have to come out in this big admittance about who you are and what you've been doing, and face that. So I want other people who are trying to help people get into rehab understand, or to get help understand, that they need to talk to people about this, about the fact that they're afraid of detoxing. That's the God honest truth. I'm going to tell you that whether you know it or not, as a friend or a family member, that person has already succumbed to the first stages of detoxing, and it is a brutally, brutally painful experience. I've been through a car accident where I was hit by a drunk driver. I've been through a car accident where I was driving intoxicated. I have fallen down. I've had 3 kids. I've done lots of things. So I've been injured before. Detoxing is such a painful, physically exhausting, sickening, just to believe that, say, hypothetically, car toxins or any toxins in your bloodstream that were not supposed to be there in the first place, or to the amount that they were supposed to be there, coming out of your system is you might have seen somebody trying to detox. You might have seen the first stages of it. It gets a lot worse. It gets very, very bad, and it's very painful, and it's very sickening, and you just can't fathom dealing with the pain anymore. So usually your best prescription is to put more of the drug or the chemical in your body to make it stop. That is the fastest way to ease that pain or suffering. But what a lot of people don't understand is that the prescriptions that they have nowadays to assist you in detoxing are so incredible. And you should not be detoxing on your own. You could die very easily from detoxing on your own because of the pain and the excruciating things that you've already done to your body, and the fact that you've numbed that pain and how it comes to you tenfold as you sober up is just the tremors, the throwing up, the sweating. God, it's just miserable. It's miserable. And so I knew a little bit when I knew I needed more, when I became dependent on alcohol. I knew what it was emotionally and physically doing to me. I was afraid, very afraid of sobering up fully. And then mentally, what that would do to me. I was substantially reliant on alcohol. My body needed it to survive. It felt like needed it to function at all. It felt like. So when you're at that place, you're very scared of what you're going to go through, or how it's going to affect you getting off of a substance. So understand that there is a big fear in them when they are saying no, they don't want treatment, or they don't need it, and they think they can do it on their own. Number one, they're not going to be able to. No matter how much they try, and they probably have an intention of trying because they know they need help, they're not going to be able to. They will probably kill themselves first. But there's also an underlying factor of the fact that when they have any of a substance in their body to a point of being self-reliant or self-dependent on it, they are no longer caring for themselves, nor do they care what you think. Do they care? That numbs all judgmental aspects of their mind. They don't have to feel anything for you. They don't have to feel anything for themselves. They could feel like that's going to be way easier. I know I often felt that way. is just to leave all of this. I don't want to feel anguish. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel sorrow. I don't want to feel like I care about you, because if I care about you, I could lose you. What I was substantially going through is death of several people that were very important to me, hitting me harder than I was able to deal with or cope with, which caused a little bit of, nobody really knew, but it caused some PTSD in me, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome. That was based off of my past history. And you can find these things out by talking to people once you decide to get sober, but you won't be able to do that until you decide to become sober. So if you do get somebody in there, these are going to be some of the first requirements, and they will want you to do this because they want, and you should be open and honest to share, because that's the only way you're going to find out what's going on with you and how to heal those things so that this doesn't happen, because there's no cure for alcoholism or addiction altogether, but there is a cure for the problems on why you turn to it, why you no longer want to feel. There's cures for depression. There's cures for post-traumatic stress. But you need to seek a doctor's help, and you need to be open and honest about what you're going through, and not be like, oh, this makes me a victim, or this makes me like a crybaby because I'm going through this and that. That's not what it is. You're saving your life. And whether or not you think that you deserve to be here, or you think that other people don't need you, or they'd be better off without you, that's not true. That's just the convincing mechanism of the disease taking over your brain and putting its wrath within. It's like the devil. So I know some people aren't spiritual. You don't have to be spiritual, but you better gosh darn believe in something if you're going to get through this, because you're not going to be able to do it alone. There's no way. So you have to believe in something, a power greater than yourself, to get you through this, because it's not easy. It's very hard, but you have to believe that you are here for a reason, and you have to cling on to something, because you're not going to be it. You've exhumed all of that by taking the drug, and the drug has eliminated it from your process of feeling and emotional attachment to yourself or to anybody else. So you have to believe in maybe a better you, even a spiritual God, a heavenly Father, whatever you want to believe in, but you got to believe that you're not alone. That's the first and foremost. You have to, because if you're lonely, then you just, that just plays off the depression and everything else. You've just got to not accept that. So first step, and that would be, they're going to want your story. They want to know your history. I always had alcohol as a participant in my life since very young age. 6 years old, my first memory. Always my mom drinking beers. She was a bourbon and 7 drinker later, but I remember beers with friends. We got our first house when I was about 6, in Fresno. I believe we lived in apartments in Hanford or Lemoore or something like that. Before that, I don't recall anything of those places. My first memories are about 6. And we moved into a brand new house, me, my brother, and my mom. Like I said, my dad was not a substantial part of my life. He was in and out of my life, but more verbally arguments with my mom. He would pop in here and there. We had some visitation, but we spent most of the time with my grandparents. My dad did his own thing. And my mom, I remember knowing the word drunk before I even knew I knew the word drunk. I do remember my brother calling me out several times late at night, early in the morning. I'm not even sure what time was. But to let me know that I'd see my mom face down on the floor, and my brother would tell me, he would always whisper to me at night to come and help him get her up or whatever. I would always think she was dead or something was wrong with her, and he would tell me, no, she was just drunk. So I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that meant we had to help her up and get her to bed. And we would help her and get her to bed, and we usually had to provide dinner for ourselves, so we would either take money out of her wallet to go get us something from Snow White. At the time we lived in Fresno, get us something from Snow White or 7-Eleven. Or my brother was 4 years older than me, so knew how to make macaroni and cheese. Either way, she had a full-time job working at Pacific Bell. She was a Pacific Bell manager. But after that, we didn't see very much of her. When she'd come home, 5 to 7 p.m., and then shortly after that, we were a little bit bypassed on meals and such. I don't remember her ever really feeding us. I remember she made a tamale pie I didn't like, but I don't remember anything she really cooked for us a whole lot. I remember eating a lot at Snow White and going to 7-Eleven or fried burritos and hamburgers and french fries and doing what we had to. But we'd walk together at night and we'd go get what we needed to get. And my mom never got mad about borrowing the money. I don't think any questions were asked or we ever even really talked about it. My mom introduced us to a gentleman right around 6.5, maybe 7 years old. And she was going to marry him. He ran the Ford down there in Fresno, the future Ford. And she was engaged to be married. I guess they were doing a bridal shower for her. We didn't know anything about this guy, nor did we know the guy. This was our first time meeting him. Her response was that she didn't want to introduce anybody to her children who were just going to abandon or leave her. So she wanted us to get to know the guy since she was now engaged to him, I guess, or in love with him. So, yeah, I don't really know when the wedding took place. We weren't a part of it. I believe they went to Vegas or something. See, my whole family seemed to know something about it because they'd come over for showers or such, but us inside the house never talked about it. We just accepted it, I guess. He had 2 sons who were twins, which were my stepbrothers. My stepfather started molesting me, I don't know, probably around 7, sneaking in my room at night, touching me inappropriately. I remember I'd be very tired at night. I had Care Bear wallpaper. I remember looking at the Care Bears and crying and thinking he was like the gray clouds and the gray skulls, and watching the colors of my life seem to fade as I cried myself to sleep. Never really told anybody. He would always say my mom wouldn't believe me or that she would be jealous. That seemed to affect me more, that she would be jealous, that she would think that he loved me more than her. During the daytime and everything, he treated me like his little angel. I was like his favorite. He always had me sit with him on the couch. And the sad fact was I didn't even know this was a problem until I was about 10. Came home from school one day, and I remember I was not understanding how come my friends were not talking about it yet. Like that they were tired all the time, or that how they could maintain grades. And I mean, I was trying my hardest and I was getting like B's and C's, but I knew I could do better, but I was just so tired all the time. And I just never knew when it was that he was going to come in, and I hated waiting for it and everything attached to it. And so, I mean, I never thought it was a big deal, I guess. I just thought that's what dads do. I mean, that's all. Another thing he'd always say is this is how good girls get loved by their fathers. This is what dads do. And being I never had one, I guess I just assumed he was correct. And I had to have thought that my mom knew about it or something. I mean, well, I don't know, but she did. I guess she didn't. Anyway, I came to her about 10 and told her I had something I needed to ask her about. And she said, yeah. And I told her could she sit down and talk to me for a little bit? And I ended up telling her, I said, well, that thing that dad does, and it's making me uncomfortable. And when does it stop, or does it change, or just making me really tired, and school's getting harder. And my mom just kind of gave me a blank stare. And then she said, she asked me to go to my room, told me that she would call me out when she wanted me to come out, but to stay in there until she called me out. I couldn't tell if she was mad at me or what was going on. Yeah, I just remember it getting really, really late. And I snuck out of the room, and I was so scared. She was so mad, and I peeked around a corner, and I called for her, and she was standing at the entryway with a gun pointed to my stepfather's head, and she gave me this really creepy grin that was just kind of like, honey, I told you to stay in your room until it's time. Go back to your room. And I remember just looking at her, are you okay, Mom? Are you okay? And she's holding the gun right at his head, and she's like, I'm doing fine, honey. I'm doing just fine. Just go back to your room. I'm into something psychopath. And I went back to my room, and I don't know what happened that day. I just know that he went away. I went to my room. I woke up the next morning, and everything resumed as normal, but the stepbrothers were gone. The father was gone. All of his things were gone. And my mom was fine, and my brother didn't know anything about it really. I don't know if somebody talked to him later, but just went about like everything was normal. And he never came to my room again. Yeah, so I know people did somehow hear about it. My grandparents somehow eventually found out about it, and but nobody talked about it. It was just, we're not going to talk about this. We're sorry that happened to you, but it's over. It's taken care of. And so, yeah, that was that. So I didn't go to counseling or anything. It just kind of was like, whoopsie, that thing happened. And we're not even going to say that it was necessarily wrong. We're just going to say it's not going to happen anymore. And anyway, some things went on with my mom. My mom got lupus. She got pretty ill. Me and my brother got scared from time to time, thinking that she was going to die. She would always tell us she's not going to die. But my mom had a really bad drinking problem. She'd become abusive, mainly to my brother. Say 3 out of 5 nights a week, she was beating the holy crap out of him, whooping him with belts. I'd hear him screaming from the next room, and I'd just sit outside and cry. I wish I could help him. She'd usually pass out late, and we'd go to the store, get something to eat. My brother always had his own crowds, and I had mine, and I had my neighbor friends. Some of my neighbor friends knew about it, so they'd always invite me over if possible, so that way I could stay away from any problems. I think some of the parents might have even known, but I don't know. Oftentimes we'd walk her home from the bar. Tarpey Tavern was around the corner, and neighbors would call and say, there's your mom again, or she'd be driving with the door open. Liquor King also around the corner. But schooling got complicated by high school years, and my brother moved out at the age of 14 to go move in with my grandparents. I ended up having a youth party at my house for the first time. My mom promised she wasn't going to drink, so I invited some of the popular kids over, and thought I was going to be in a popular crowd, I guess. Thought my life was going to look up once I was a freshman, and my brother was a senior. He was no longer living there. Him and my mom had gotten such bad arguments, and my mom, in my fights, once my brother was out, my mom took a lot of the verbal and physical abuse on me. I had shown up to school sometimes with black eyes. I had a girlfriend, Teresa Levesque. She ended up reporting it. I remember I was mad at her for years because it got my mom in trouble. My mom had to go to AA even though she didn't stop drinking, but it put us through a lot of stuff, and I don't think my mom was getting better anyway, but I thank her now because it got me to move out of that house, and I moved in with my grandparents, and come to find out she's a counselor now, which is awesome. But she was the first person that reached out about it. But I would go to school with black eyes, just tell people I fell off my bike, no big deal, She used to punch us with those lighters that used to have the metal cases. She'd have those in her hand. And so I had invited a whole bunch of friends over for a Halloween party. Mom swore she wasn't going to drink, and she got belligerent, and her boyfriend came out with my mom's underwear on and cowboy boots to the party, and everybody in high school saw them. And oh my God, did they laugh. I remember I wanted to switch high schools. My mom started chasing people around my house with a butcher knife, issuing them out. I stayed over at a friend's house overnight. Humiliating. My boyfriend broke up with me the next day. My friends wouldn't talk to me. I was the humiliation of the school. I just wanted to transfer schools. My mom wouldn't let me. Just said I could forget all about them. They weren't friends if they were going to be like that. But I had 4 years with these people I had to deal with, so I became a loner for a long time. And then I came in one day and I started taking 2 aspirin. I had a headache and started taking another 2 aspirin. And then I waited for my mom to notice how many aspirin I was taking, hoping she would notice or pay attention to me at all. And I kept taking them until I was like 120 aspirin in. And I guess a girlfriend made a phone call to me, and I wasn't sounding so good, and she called somebody to come over and help me or check me out, and they found out, and so they pumped my stomach, and it was a suicide attempt. So my grandparents were called to remove me from the house, and so I began living with my grandparents, which everything was great then. Everything became better. My life became better. My grandparents were structured. They taught me how to stop being so sorry, how to stop being so pitiful. My grandma taught me self-confidence and strength and how to cook. And my grandfather, if you were 10 minutes late, held you accountable and responsibility. And they were my parents, you know? They were everything I wanted to be. They're the other half of me, you know? Whatever I'm made up of, the other half of what I became. And I was in Christian youth groups, anything to stay away from alcohol. I was never going to let it come through my life like that again, you know? I stayed away from it. Graduated high school, high honors pretty much. Did really good for myself, you know? Had a job from the age of 14. Moved out at 18, supported myself. Worked as a manager at Boston Market by 18. Had a great unit of friends. I met my husband in an apartment across the way from me at 19 years old. He was 18. He was a boy working 2 jobs, lived with his mom, was helping her through alcoholic issues, so we had a lot in common. And we became best of friends. Didn't really want men in my life at first. I had my fair share of men that I really, really cared for and really wanted them to love me. And I think that's due to not having appropriate men in my life. I did not have sex until 18, but I could not seem to keep a guy to be with me. I had a lot of really good guys that cared about me a lot and wanted to be with me from church and stuff. But there was issues with that because I had this high moral respect for them and the homes they came from, and I knew where I came from. And so part of me still felt like a dirtbag. I felt like I was not good for them. Like I was not going to be their type of person. They deserved better than what I was. So it was very easy for me to put them down and say no. That just wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to ruin their lives with something that they did not know or understand. So when my husband came into my life, him understanding alcoholism a little bit and having some issues dealing with stuff like that, we connected a lot that way and became friends first. He knew I didn't want a boyfriend. But there was a day that he came to me and he said, I don't think I can be your friend anymore. I think I want more than that. And I wasn't willing to lose him. So we got married and very young. I think we had to move our marriage date so that we could both at least have a drink to cheers at our wedding. My husband always drank beer. I probably didn't drink until... I drink here and there. Yeah, beers for sipping for friends, social, but I didn't really like it. Didn't do anything for me. Wasn't into the buzz feeling. I didn't like losing my head. So I was an assistant manager at Jamba Juice. I mean, always kept good jobs. Wanted kids young, so I had my 2 kids young. Everything was really great until my mom got sick, like 27. I was pregnant with my daughter, 8 months pregnant, and my mom got sick with pneumonia, and something happened in the middle of the night where she had a bad reaction to medication, and her eyes rolled back and set as if she was going to pass on, so they sedated her to calm down. It was supposed to be like an 11-day sedation for her to take medication for her lungs, but she never came out of it, and she ended up brain dead. I sat by her side at the hospital every day. My grandfather, previous to this, had a stint with dementia where I was by his side most of the time, helping him. Him not knowing who I was, me and 4 friends were together, and we'd take 4-hour shifts, giving my grandmother breaks and at a hospital, and it was devastating to see the things that dementia does to you. He thought he was in his youth again. He wanted to smoke all the time. He never smoked. I don't know. Didn't know who I was from time to time and wanted to hurt me and verbally abusive. But he was my grandfather, and it was hard to see him go through that. But he got better for a while after my son was born. And it was amazing because it's like he completely snapped out of it for a period of time. And during that time is when my mom got sick. And So we had neurologists come in, and my mom didn't have a will that could be found. So we had neurologists come in, and I had to advocate in court to decide for her best interests. And I was in huge denial. Like, I wanted to bring her home. She was going to be fine. She was going to get better. She was like me. She was a survivor. I loved my mom. My mom was my best friend, even though she was an alcoholic. She was my best friend, you know. I loved her a lot. So, came the day. She was three months in there with no movement. She had opened her eyes for a period of time. She could see, but her brain wasn't active. And her body started to die off. She started to get blood clots in her legs and her arms. And they started to say that they had to amputate. They were going to have to amputate this if I was going to continue to keep her on life support. So I had to make the godly decision of taking her off of the only thing that was keeping her surviving. And it did not last long. And so my mother passed away in my arms on June 22nd, 2006. I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter. My daughter's named after her, Deanna Lynn. She was 55 years old. That day, I went through a very serious thing where I left the hospital and they gave me the rest of her belongings. And I remember walking out and I was so confused and frustrated. My mind could not wrap around how I walked in with a human being. And I was walking out with a bag. I still to this day don't understand it. I wanted answers. Like, I wanted a person. It's not right, you know. And people were talking. They were talking in the elevator, and they were talking about somebody getting better or somebody coming down to see somebody else. And there was a piano music playing in the downstairs, and I just couldn't understand why time hadn't stopped. Why wasn't time stopping? How come nobody was feeling what I felt? It was so huge. And I ran into a bathroom and I locked the door. It was a public bathroom, and I locked the door and I screamed, cried. For about 45 minutes, I was just a mess. I just wanted to know why. And I don't know what happened. I walked out of the bathroom, buckering up, and I was going to be just fine, you know? I had stuff to do. I had to do her bills, and I had to go down to the cemetery, and I needed to take care of her stuff, you know? And I got in my car. And I don't know how much time passed, and I don't know all I did. I was gone until 8 p.m. I just remember getting a call from Dane, and I don't know where I was. And they think I went through some sort of PTSD where everything shut down on me. Like, I just got overloaded. I don't know. That's how they explain it, is you just are overwhelmed with emotion. And so your capabilities, your mental capacity, your emotional capacity halts, and it just freezes up on you. And I mean, I can look back on it, and I remember seeing myself yelling at some maternity lady. Like, she was in motherhood, and I was 8 months pregnant, yelling at her, going, she's trying to give me a pregnancy dress, and I'm telling her I'm pregnant, and I'm like, does that look like something you'd wear to a funeral? My mother just died. I mean, I sounded crazy, but I was yelling at this girl, you're a freaking idiot, like, you don't, you know, and look at that, that's not even black, that's not even respect, you F you, and I'm going freaking nuts, and I just was so embarrassed. And I gathered myself together, and I had to get her estate ready, and I had to do this, and I had to do that, and I snapped out of it and got done with all of her stuff. And my cousin was living in the house at the time to take care of it so nobody broke in. She ended up bringing her friends in, and they ended up squatting on the property. Got rid of some of my mom's things. Nothing was the way it was. Everything was a mess. We had to sell the house as is. We lost quite a bit of money on it, but I had to wait for the squatters to leave. I mean, it was an utter nightmare. I don't think I slept that whole month. I had to deal with that in court, and all of the emotional stuff that had attached to the death was gone. I had too much to do. I had a baby on the way. I had a son who was 9 months old, and I had things I had to do. There's just no way I can deal with this right now. And so that's pretty much my story. It went a year that I coped and I dealt, and I just held on to everything that I could do. And a year passed from her funeral day. I believe it was her birthday or something. And I missed her so badly. I felt disconnected from the world. I felt alone. I felt like nobody still understood. The pain was still there as if it had just happened. And I remember saying I was going to celebrate with her since I had never appreciated her. I never spent time with her because she'd always drink. So I went down to the store and I bought my first drink ever, bourbon and 7 in her name. And I poured it by myself and I drank it, and man, it made everything go away, and it made everything so much better. Became happy. I want to listen to music. I was dancing and having a good time, and just by myself, like she was with me. I felt more connected to her. I wanted something to bring her back more than anything in the world. And the only thing I could think of was alcohol, because that's the closest thing she was to. And that's where it all fell apart, slowly but surely. Then it became more and more, and every day. And by 32, I was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. I woke up one morning, I was jaundiced, my eyes completely yellow. I was down to 93 pounds. I was now drinking from morning till night. I was still sustaining jobs. I could still walk. I never passed out. I never blacked out. Most people didn't even know I was drinking as much as I was drinking. I was what they would call a functioning alcoholic, although there is no such thing. I was emotionless. I was a faker. I was a simple shadow of what I once was. And I was pretending to be what everybody wanted me to be. And I was dealing with it just fine. And yeah, I got a death sentence. I walked into the hospital and they basically said, "You are the walking dead. What are we going to do with you? Like, you're not even supposed to be standing right now." I was brown in color, probably the color of bourbon or rum. The skin color, it was emitting from my smells. I stenched of it. My eyes were yellow, like freaking egg yolk yellow. And I was 8 months pregnant, just fluid built up in my stomach that I had to have pumped out, liters and liters. And that's cirrhosis. My liver had completely shut down. And so when I come back, probably tomorrow or tonight, I will tell you guys how my rejuvenation journey started, although relapse is part of recovery. So I fell down a lot. Still maintain getting back up, but that's when, don't ever think it can't get worse. It can get a lot worse. It can always get worse. But I fought in it every single step of the way. Till I had no fight in me left, pretty much, until death just kept knocking. It was God's will that I didn't die. So thank you guys all. Keep tuned in, and I'll keep posting. And then from here, now that I've admitted all of my secrets, my closets, or skeletons, I will talk about coping skills, because that's the struggle. That's, you guys, there's always hope. There's always ways. We can always get through this, and as long as we're doing it together and we're not doing it alone, there's ways. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on the fact that you have others, and there's things to believe in, and there's people to believe in, and there's people that believe in you. You have a purpose, and if you're not gone yet, God's probably looking after you. So at some point, you're going to have to listen, because the struggle will get so hard that you don't want to battle it on your own. And that's the thing. That's where I was at a crossroads in my life, is the struggle uphill. I'm only making things worse. I'm not going to go away. I wasn't going to die from this. I wasn't going to go away. It was just going to get worse and worse. And my fight was going to have to get harder and harder. And I was tired. So facing it, you just have to face it. And I'm glad I did. So I love you all. God be with you. My interview went well today. So yay. And case manager says everything's good. So thank you guys. Sticking with it, and thank you for your time. Peace be with you.